Hi, today we're going to be reading We Wear the Mask by Paul Laurence Dunbar. And this poem is going to appear on the Reading Summative A for this unit, which we'll be taking next class. That is Friday, December 3rd for Gold Day students, and Monday, December 6th for Black Day students. Okay, so we want to read and analyze this and annotate this with as many notes as we can so that you can use it to help you when you take the test. Also, we're going to be talking about how this poem connects to the novel. So there's a real reason that I chose this poem. Okay, here we go from the top. We Wear the Mask by Paul Laurence Dunbar. Paul Laurence Dunbar was an influential African-American poet during the early 20th century. He was the son of freed slaves and friend of Frederick Douglass. Critics have said he was the first to rise to height from which he could take a perspective view of his own race. He was the first to see objectively its humor, its superstitions, its shortcomings, the first to feel sympathetically its heart wounds, its yearnings, its aspirations, and to voice them all in a purely literary form. As you read the poem, take notes on Dunbar's use of figurative language and diction, and what these devices reveal about the poem's theme. We wear the mask that grins and lies. It hides our cheeks and shades our eyes. This debt we pay to human guile. With torn and bleeding hearts we smile, and mouth with myriad subtleties. Why should the world be overwise in counting all our tears and sighs? Nay, let them see only us while we wear the mask. We smile, but, O great Christ, our cries to thee from tortured souls arise. We sing, but, oh, the clay is vile beneath our feet and long the mile. But let the world dream otherwise. We wear the mask. All right, so now let's take a look at the questions on the back here. So the first question is what does the mask symbolize? The mask symbolizes so you want to think about what the mask can represent beyond being a literal mask itself. So you want to think about, does he mean like a mask, like a Jason mask, or some other sort of Halloween mask? Are they really putting on a mask? Like what are they doing when they're putting on the mask? And why are they putting on the mask? What are they trying to hide? So think about that for a minute and get an answer in your head. And go ahead and take a guess at that. We'll go over the answer in a minute. Okay, so now that you have formed your own opinion, let's check your thinking. So really, the mask most clearly symbolizes when they wear the mask, they are covering up the pain caused by racism. So that's what it means to wear the mask. They're acting like everything is okay, but it is not okay. All right, the next thing I want you to think about is who's the speaker, how do you know, and I want you to highlight the words and phrases that give you the clues to figure this out. So remember, the speaker of the poem is the voice behind the poem, and it can be a character that the author is creating and doesn't necessarily have to be a character themselves. It could also be an entire group of people. So knowing that, why don't you form an idea about who you think the speaker is and share it with me. Okay, so now that you have formed an idea about who you think the speaker is, let's take a look at what clues the poem gives us, and I will explain to you who the speaker is and how I know. Okay, so if we look at the poem, I am noticing words like we, us, our. So when I see these words, I know that this has to be a group of people because it is a plural pronoun. So I think what most students want to go to is that they want to say that Paul Laurence Dunbar is the speaker, but he by himself can't be the speaker. He has to be part of a larger group of people. So what group of people could he be part of? Maybe African Americans, since he was African American. And considering that the mask wearing is to cover up the pain they're feeling from racism, that probably makes the most sense. So, sorry, I had to pause for just a moment. Somebody came in with a question. So we know that the speaker is all African Americans. And we know because of the use of plural pronouns and knowing what the mask symbolizes. All right, great. So the next question is, why must they wear the mask? So when we're talking about why they have to wear the mask, what do you think? Why do you think they have to wear the mask? If we look at the poem for clues, it says things like, why should the world be overwise in counting all our tears and sighs? And it also says, but let the world dream otherwise. We wear the mask. So it's kind of, what does that say to you about the reason that they have to wear the mask and who is maybe making them or who wants them to wear the mask? Because I don't think that they as a group of people do. Okay, so why don't you tell me what you think about that? All right, so now that you've formed your own answer, I'm going to share with you what I think the answer is. I think that white people don't want to see the blacks' pain. I don't want to acknowledge it. I mean, it's still an issue, isn't it? Not what we hear about people complaining about on social media and in the news regarding race and racism, that people don't want to admit that it exists. So I think that this poem is still kind of timely, in the sense that this is a problem that people are still dealing with. Okay, so the next thing that you need to do is paraphrase line 3 and 4. So I'm just going to talk you through this one. Okay, I'm going to paraphrase line 3. and 4. So there's lines 3 and 4, or sorry, 4 and 5. Used to be able to read. 4 and 5. So lines 4 and 5 are with torn and bleeding hearts we smile, mouth red with subtleties. So torn and bleeding hearts tells me that they're feeling how? Probably hurt, right? So they're kind of saying we smile even though we're hurting. So that's what I'm going to write here for 4. We smile even though we are hurting. So then what does line 5 mean? Or how can we paraphrase that? How can we put it into different words? A mouth with myriad subtleties. Well, what is a myriad? That's countless. So lots. And what is a subtlety? That's a small detail or difference that are important but not obvious. So small detail to small important detail, right? So what do you think these small important details with the way that their mouth looks are revealing or could reveal if people looked closely? Probably the torn and bleeding hearts, the pain, right? So what we get here is if you look closely at our smiles, you'll see differences that tell you they are fake. All right, so the next thing to do is to find and highlight 2 examples of irony. Remember, irony is where we have a contrast between expectation and reality. For example, a pilot who is afraid of heights. He would not expect somebody that's job is to be thousands of feet in the air to be afraid of heights. Likewise, you would not expect a cop to get arrested. They're supposed to be enforcing the law, not breaking it. So those are some examples of irony. So look at the lines in these poems and see if you can find the line in the first stanza and the line in the third stanza that tells you that this is that shows something that you wouldn't expect. People reacting to a situation or being a certain way, looking a certain way, but feeling another maybe that you wouldn't expect them to be feeling based on how they look. So let me know what you think those 2 lines are. Okay. Now that you've identified those 2 lines, let's see if what you think those 2 lines are. Let's see if you're correct. So here is one with torn and bleeding hearts we smile, because you wouldn't be smiling with your hurting like normally. And also we sing, but oh, the clay is vile. If you were standing on super icky clay, I don't think that you'd be singing. So these are examples of irony. Okay. So that is the irony. Last but not least, what word would you use to describe the tone in this poem? And what words and phrases help to support this choice? So remember, tone is the attitude of the author toward the subject, or in a poem's case, it can be the speaker toward the subject, but it's an attitude. So it's going to be a feeling word. What kind of feelings, or what kind of ways does it seem like these people are feeling about wearing the mask? So let's look at the poem, try and maybe find some clues to what the tone may be. They really feeling about wearing the mask. Um, they have lies, debt. Um, they're crying. They have tortured souls. They have tears and sighs. So, we don't like that. Um, Lying is not something that we like to have to do, or at least most people. Not all the time, and not about who we are or how we feel, for sure. And then we have cries and tortured soul. So if that's how they're feeling, if those are kind of some of the feeling words we get, what's one word that you could use to describe what their attitude seems to be toward the mask, um, wearing the mask? Tell me what you think. All right. So I kind of get a couple different vibes from this. So like the tears, obviously sadness, right? Um, I think that there is definitely some sadness in here, but there's also um, nay, let them see only us while we wear the mask. This is very sarcastic. It's a very sarcastic nay. It's like, let them have what they want. No big deal, except for it is a big deal. So we get that sarcasm there, and I think that all kind of tells it. And the lying, I think if you're forced to do something that you don't want to do, you're kind of maybe resentful, a little angry about it. So you're wanting a word that kind of gets both that anger feeling, those angry feelings, and the sad feelings. And so, what do you think a word that does that would be? All right. Now that you've told me what word you would use, I'm going to throw some out there. My favorite one to describe this poem is bitter. That to me is like a sad, angry person. So, sad, angry, I would say bitter. Um, they also sound a bit resentful. Which is kind of, to me, I think you feel resentful when you're angry because you're being wronged in some way, or something is hurting you. Um, it's making your life unpleasant. Right. So that is what you want to know and be able to explain about just this poem. Thanks for watching.